adjustment Monday, December 12th, 2022. I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Zoning Board to be open. Adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on December 14th, 2021, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Tri-Town News. Second, on December 14th, 2021, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on December 14th, said notice was posted in the office of the Zoning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567, Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcasts on Howell Township TV 77. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues of what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and the decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For any members of the public wishing to ask questions or comment on an application, you will need to use the raise your hand feature when the chairman opens up the hearing for members of the public. Once you are brought into the meeting, you will need to have both audio and video, and you will be sworn in and required to give your name and address. If you are calling in, you can press *9 to raise or lower your hand and *6 to mute and unmute yourself.
Okay, sounds good. Could we have a roll call, Eileen?
Mr. Cantor.
Here.
Mr. Hughes.
Here.
Mr. Mertens.
Here.
Mr. Moretti is excused. Mr. Roscoe.
Here.
Mr. Stanton is excused. Mr. Rubel.
Here.
Mr. Parisi.
Here.
And Chairman Say is excused. You have a quorum.
Okay, sounds good. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United
of the United States of America.
and to
the
the republic
republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice for all. Okay, the first order of business, Mr. Bayer, could you swear in our professionals?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. You all please, Jen, Shari, Charlie, raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Did Jen step away? I don't see her. Did you take the oath, Ms. Beam? Do you swear the testimony you give will
I
be
do.
the
Yes.
truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Your professionals are sworn, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, sounds good. It looks like we actually have minutes tonight. Wow. Okay, first order of business, we'll do the approval of minutes, regular meeting, August 8th, 2022. Eligible voters, Cantor, Hughes, Mertens, Moretti, Rebel, and Saya. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair. I'll second that.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Cantor.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Mertens.
Yes.
And Mr. Rubel.
Yes.
Approved.
Okay, next is regular meeting, August 22nd, 2022. Eligible voters, Cantor, Hughes, Mertens, Stanton, Rebel, and Saya. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve that. I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Cantor.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Mertens.
Yes.
And Mr. Rubel.
Yes.
Minutes approved.
Okay, moving ahead to September 12th, 2022. Regular meeting minutes, eligible voters, Cantor, Hughes, Orozco, Moretti, Rebel, and Saya. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
We have a first.
Second.
Jose seconds. Could I have a roll call?
Mr. Cantor.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Mertens.
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe.
Yes.
And Mr. Rubel.
Yes.
Minutes approved.
Okay, next is regular meetings for October 3rd, 2022. Eligible voters, Cantor, Hughes, Mertens, Moretti, Staton, Rebel, and Saya. Can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
and Mr. Rubel.
Yes.
Minutes approved.
Okay, next item, vouchers.
No vouchers tonight.
Okay, correspondence.
I have two things for correspondence. We need to go over the meeting dates for 2023.
Okay, I figured that. We'll do that first. Has everybody received and looked at them?
Yes. I'm good.
Any conflict with anybody?
The only thing is,
Go ahead, Eileen.
the only thing is April 10th, since Passover is the 5th to the 13th. So you could choose the 3rd or the 17th.
Anybody have a preference?
17th then would be also the 24th, right, Eileen?
Yes.
Either way, we're gonna have a meeting, two of them in 1 week, within a week, and then we'll
Right.
have a 3 week space, so it's gonna be one of the two.
Eileen, what day did it start?
The 5th to the 13th.
And what day's our meeting date? The 10th?
Yeah,
Yes.
That doesn't really conflict.
No, it's fine.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, the only religious days for anybody would be this first two and the last one if somebody was that religious, but the middle is fine. I just won't be able to eat anything unleavened during the meeting.
So you're
okay,
gonna be ornery, is what you're telling us. You're gonna be like salty the whole night.
Yeah, okay.
A salty Glen could be good. We'll go with that.
okay,
Is there any word on whether we'll be back in person in 2023 or remote for the foreseeable future?
Not yet.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll be reaching out to Mr. Saya. I got an email from the township late this afternoon, so I think he'll probably be reaching out to the board, Charlie, about next year. So I
okay, well,
think
that's
that will be
fine,
a
because,
discussion
and then,
for next meeting.
yeah, our next meeting is next week, so that would be good, so if you can
Yeah.
reach out and gives us a heads up, we'll
Yeah.
decide on that. But for now, we'll keep the April 10th in as the meeting date in April. If we have to change it, we can do it down the road. Is that
Okay,
simple?
sounds good.
All that being said, do we have to make a motion for that, Eileen?
Mr. Bayer? Let's
Yes.
just make it anyway. You have a
Well, you
motion.
usually would establish next year's meeting dates. I'm not sure how this board has acted historically, but in public bodies, you would usually establish meeting dates by resolution, so.
Yeah,
Okay,
That requires a motion then, correct?
It does, Mr. Hughes, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
motion by Mr. Hughes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mark. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Rubel,
Yes.
and Mr. Parisi.
Yes.
Approved.
Okay, and then you had one more correspondence.
Yes. So for BA 2206, Insight Development Partners, requested an adjournment to the first meeting in January of 2023.
Okay, well, I thought, I was figuring they might be doing that. Do we have any room? Because I thought we had a couple applicants being pushed to the 9th. Are we gonna be able to put them on there?
I let them know that they will be the third application and that it's also reorg that night. Once we have the official meeting dates, I can give them another meeting date. That's it. They said that's fine.
Okay, do we have to grant them a extension of a time, or they have to grant us an extension of time? How are we with that?
They have until March of 2023 until they expire.
Okay. Okay, so case number BA 22-06, Insight Development Partners LLC. If anybody in the audience is here for this application, it's at this time being carried till January 9th, 2023, with no further notice.
Mr. Mertens.
Yes.
Based on discussions I had with applicants' counsel today, while notice may not be legally required, I believe they may be re-noticing as well,
Okay.
just so the public's aware and the board is aware.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bear. Okay, I guess that's it. And then we can move on for our first case. So we'll start with case number BA 22-18, Justin and Lauren Erickson. Description of bulk variance, application of Justin and Lauren Erickson, an applicant and owner seeking a bulk variance approval on premises known as 259 Stewart Street, block 148, lot 7, to construct a one-story addition to the existing single-family dwelling with attached deck within the required southerly side yard setback. Each structure encroaches at approximately 2.7 feet into the required side yard setback. The applicant also proposes a new covered front porch and steps for which no relief is required. Expiration date, March 16th, 2023. Okay, are they coming in? Good evening,
Good evening.
Hi.
Justin and Lauren. How are you doing tonight?
Very well. How are you?
Yeah.
Good. Are you guys going to be the only one testifying tonight, or do you have somebody else testifying?
I believe Michelle should be on here as well. She's our
Yes,
architect.
I do see her now.
Yes, here
How
I
you doing,
am.
Michelle? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Bear, so all three of you will be testifying?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we'll swear you all in and then we'll get started.
Please raise your right hands. Do you swear that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
I do.
And then please state one at a time your names and then spell your last, starting with the Ericksons.
Justin Erickson, Errickson.
Lauren Erickson, Errickson.
And Michelle Strassheim, that's Strasshheim. I'm a licensed professional architect with Thrive by Design.
Okay, thank you. For the record, everybody is sworn in. So who's going to be starting with the testimony?
I will be, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Okay. I'm going to start with the testimony, just giving kind of an overview, and then I'll get into more detail and address the letters, the comments in the letter received from Mr. Cunliffe, and I'm so sorry if I butchered your last name. Okay.
Right on point with it.
Perfect. Okay, very good. So this evening, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This evening, we're looking at the subject property is an existing single-family dwelling with several existing accessory structures. The single-family dwelling is 1 story and approximately 880 square feet. It contains 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, a small eating kitchen and living room with a small covered front porch. It also has a partial unfinished full basement where the laundry is located, and a partial crawl space. There's also an unfinished walk-up attic. The applicant will not be demolishing the house, but is looking to construct a 1-story, 678 square foot addition with a new 40 square foot front porch and new 192 square foot deck. Okay. On the northerly side of the property, we are constructing a new master suite, expanding 1 existing bedroom and relocating 1 bedroom from the opposite side of the house. The work proposed for this area of the site is fully compliant with all zoning requirements. On the easterly side of the property, we are demolishing the existing dilapidated front porch and constructing a new one. This is also fully compliant with the front yard setback. To the rear or westerly side of the property extends the master suite addition, a new laundry room, and is an expansion of the existing kitchen and a new dining area, all of which complies. On the southerly side of the site, you will see that the existing dwelling encroaches into the side yard setback. Part of the proposed addition includes expanding existing bedroom to turn it into a dining area. The existing home has a very tiny kitchen that's eat in with a kitchen table like up against the kitchen wall. To effectively accomplish expanding the kitchen and turning the bedroom into a dining room, the sidewall of the addition needs to align with the existing sidewall of the dwelling. As a result, the applicant is seeking variance relief to construct a approximately 2.7 feet by 8-foot portion of the addition over the side yard setback. Additionally, the proposed deck will align with the sidewall of the proposed addition because of the location of a sliding glass door that's located in that rear corner of the home. As a result, the deck will also encroach 2.7 feet approximately over the side yard setback. Okay, so that portion concludes the general overview of the documents that you've received and of the application. I will now go into more detail regarding the architectural design and makeup of the proposed addition. Some of my testimony.
Excuse me for a minute, Ms. Strahan, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's
Mr.
okay.
Mayor, I'm sorry, should we, since she is professionally testifying, shouldn't we qualify her?
Yes,
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
yeah.
That's
You
okay.
you did start with your credentials when you were
Sure, I
sworn.
can continue.
Yeah,
That's no problem. So again, my name is Michelle Strassheim. I'm a licensed professional architect in the state of New Jersey. My license is current. I'm the sole proprietor and owner of Thrive by Design LLC. It's located at 18 Skipper Lane in Brick, New Jersey. I have my bachelor's of architecture degree from Roger Williams University. I've been working in the field of architecture for probably 20 years now. And then the last several years I've been licensed. I'm sorry that I can't remember exactly the year that was. It was probably about 5 years ago now. Additionally, aside from having spent 20 years practicing and working in the field of architecture, I am also the former vice chairperson for Brick Township's Zoning Board of Adjustment, and also their former chairperson for their Architectural Review Committee.
Okay, thank you.
So I have ample experience from both
Yeah,
sides.
sounds like it. So we accept your credentials. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
And Mr. Mertens, just to jump in, I just want to give the board perspective on where the site is and what the site plan is. So I'm going to just
Sure.
share.
Go ahead, Charlie.
This is the first sheet of the applicant's architectural plan. This just shows the property bounds. The box in white here is the existing one-story frame dwelling. You can see the applicant has shown the bulk standard requirements for principal structures. This property, I believe it's in the R2 zone. The front yard setback requirement is 50 feet for out roads on internal roads. Like Stewart Street, the requirement is 25 feet. Side yard setback is 20 feet, and the rear yard setback requirement is 30 feet. You can hear as Ms. Strassheim, am I saying that correctly?
Strassheim, that's okay.
Strassheim noted the existing dwelling encroaches approximately 2.7 feet into the southerly side yard setback. This is the subject addition to the single family dwelling hatched in gray here. And then there's the additional deck on the back of the structure. Both the deck and the addition to the back of the structure match that side yard setback to the existing dwelling, necessitating the variance relief. And this is just Google Street View imagery showing the subject property dated July of 2022, showing the structure. So just to give you some reference on what the existing setback looks like. And then I'll let you continue, Ms. Strassheim.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Okay. So as I said, I will now go into a little bit more detail, the architectural design and the makeup of the proposed addition. Some of this testimony will also address several of the comments found in Mr. Cunliffe's review letter. Okay. As previously noted, the existing dwelling's foundation is half basement, half crawl space. As a result, the proposed addition will be a combination of both. The 8-foot addition in the rear will be a crawl space, and the bedroom addition to the right, or that's the northerly side of the property, will be a full basement. And the reason for that is just to simplify. It's for construction purposes. It's easier to tie the new foundation footings and the existing together properly, so that it's just to deal with settling and things of that nature. So that's really more of a construction detail, and that's why we're doing that. The existing basement is not finished. It is used for storage and can currently holds the existing laundry room, which will be relocated into the new addition. The basement does not contain any bedrooms, and the applicant has no intention of ever creating bedrooms in the basement. The existing walk-up attic is also unfinished and used for storage. While the applicant may choose to finish it in the future, there's no intention of any kind for it to be bedrooms or loft bedrooms. The truth of the matter is, hold on, let's go. Additionally, part of the proposed interior alteration work includes vaulting the ceilings of the living, dining, and kitchen area. This eliminates the attic space above nearly half of the house. Additionally, the new master bedroom will have a vaulted ceiling, which eliminates its attic space above. The applicant has again, no intention of creating bedrooms in this space. If it was finished, it's really just for storage, and it's very minimal ceiling height. So it would never function as anything more than just a little bonus space. Part of the proposed improvements to the home include new asphalt roofing, vinyl siding that include cedar shake style, horizontal siding, and a vertical board and batten. There will be new windows and doors. Therefore, the new exterior materials will not match the existing, but will be consistent with the neighborhood and traditional residential architectural design. So the whole house is getting completely re-sided in a new exterior. Any exterior lighting will be standard residential lighting that's required by code. So nothing that, is obtrusive to any of the neighbors, no spotlights, things of that nature. The deck in the rear will be constructed at approximately 40 inches above grade. It's constructed of wood, with the decking either being wood or a composite material. Beneath the deck, it will remain dirt. The applicant has not yet determined if the space will be enclosed with lattice or a siding. They may in the future decide to finish it off with lattice because it will certainly look nicer. While the architectural drawings do not indicate a guardrail or stairs with a handrail down to grade, both shall be required, are required and will be provided. They're required by code. The guardrail, stairs, and handrail will comply with any and all applicable building codes. Additionally, the stairs down to grade will not be located within the side yard setback. We will make sure that they comply. With respect to the parking, RSIS standards indicate that 2 off-street parking spaces be provided and must be a minimum of, if I recall correctly, 9 feet wide by 18 feet long. The existing driveway is 50 feet from the proposed addition to the property line and is 16 feet wide. 2 parking spaces will comfortably fit in the existing driveway. With the new front porch, will receive a new sidewalk. However, there are no other new sidewalks proposed for the property, none to the rear. Okay, so that part concludes more in-depth architectural information and detail. The next part of my testimony is with respect to the architectural design as it relates to zoning and the intent and purposes of the MLUL.
So can I just ask you a couple questions?
Of course.
So the addition and the new deck is like what, 1.5 feet into the setback, 2.5 feet into the setback?
What did we say? 2.7 feet. I
Right.
believe that's what's in Mr. Cunliffe's letter.
So can you not just comply?
Okay, so what part of the issue that we found is that can we just scoot everything over? So part of what we're trying to accomplish by adding the 8 feet out the back is we're just taking the existing bedroom that's in the rear. I'm not sure, is there a floor plan that we could pull up? The second page of this PDF. Okay, so here's the existing in the rear is the, yes, thank you. Existing bedroom and the existing kitchen, okay? So the existing bedroom is going to be converted into a new dining area. And then the existing kitchen is going to bump out into the rear. So here now you can see the proposed layout. Now, if we end up complying where we pull the corner of the dining room wall in 2 feet for the end of the reality is you can put a kitchen table in there, but you can't walk around it.
Okay.
I'm just saying, honestly, like, I feel like it's 2.5 feet. You have the ability to extend it the other direction. They're like, I mean, I'm more than happy to listen to your planning testimony, but I just, you can comply. You're just not proposing to.
Well, in order to comply,
Yeah.
we would have to put a whole room out the back to
Why?
change the whole.
No, you don't. No, that's because that's what you want, but you're not obligated to like, I mean, you guys can do what you want. It's up to the board. That's fine. But like, because I want it is not, it's not a justification under zoning.
No, I understand, and I
mean, are
agree.
you-
I
But you're an architect,
wholeheartedly agree
right?
with that.
You're an architect. I get that. But from a planning perspective, you can comply. You're just not proposing to currently. So, I mean, it's up to the board whether they want to allow you to continue a deviation that, in my professional opinion, is not necessary, but it's up to them. But I just, because I want it, it's not a goal of zoning.
Right, and I understand completely what you're saying. Believe me, if I felt that this isn't a question of this is just what we want.
It is. It is.
I-
You can. There's no. Like, you're not entitled to a deck that extends into a setback. You want it. That's what you're asking for, but there's no justification why you need it. So I mean, it's up to the board, but at some point, like, requiring applicants to provide like legitimate justification for variance relief is, I mean, you can continue on your testimony and that's fine, but
Jennifer, can I just chime in real quick? I get what you're coming from on this, but my thinking is there already, isn't the house existing 2.7 feet already?
it is, but
So-
we're not obligated to allow them to exacerbate it. Especially when there's the entire balance of the back facade that can accommodate a deck that doesn't require encroachment into a setback. And, you know, it's gonna take a little creativity, but like, we're not obligated because the existing house encroaches to allow them to expand it. Just cause. And like, they can continue on their testimony and I understand what you're saying, but every development that we see that continues to say it is what it is and we're going to allow for it to go on, it's, you know, there needs to be legitimate justification, and not because it's difficult to adjust, it's because, you know, there's no alternative, and I'm not 100% sure that that's the case here.
Okay. Charlie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to ask a couple clarifying questions. So, you you talked about the deck in the rear. There's no intent or at the moment to enclose the bottom portion of it with lattice, but they might want to do that in the future. Above the decking, is there any intent to put 4 walls and a roof on that, or is that going to
No,
just
there is
remain
not.
Okay. You talked about the basement expansion. There's no existing bedrooms and there's no intent to put bedrooms down there.
That's correct.
And then the same thing with the attic expansion, because you're putting in a vaulted ceiling for the existing, I guess, front living space.
Mhm.
You now need attic space for storage to make up for that difference in the lost attic space.
Yes.
Okay. RSIS, so you talked about there's no change in number of bedrooms, 3 exist, 3 are proposed. RSIS requires 2 parking spaces. It's your testimony that the existing driveway. So, and just to clarify for the board, going back to the first page of the architectural plan. So right now the existing driveway kind of scallops out and there's a little side parking area. This area is being removed. Is that correct?
I'm gonna ask for the Ericksons to weigh in on that.
Yes,
portion.
yeah, that'll be removed and it would be, grass seed and everything would be put down.
So, and then can you just talk about the width of the remaining portion of the driveway again?
Currently, we could fit 2 vehicles side by side. So if I had to put an educated guess in, I would say it would probably be at least 14 feet wide.
Okay. So normally ordinance for parking spaces on like commercial sites require 9 by 18 spaces. So that would be 18 foot wide. I think for double wide parking, 20 foot is usually typical.
Well, generally, I mean, there is still enough area there with the proposed driveway to fit 2 cars back to back. I don't know if that plays into effect.
Okay. Okay. So depth wise, you're saying you can fit 2 head on parking spaces.
100% correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Talked about no attic bedrooms. Question that I just had. So the survey that was provided with the application, there's a second structure on the property that was on the survey. It's called a frame dwelling. On the architectural plan, it's called an existing structure. I just want to be clear. That's not any secondary principal like residence or apartment that's rented or anything like that.
No.
No, it's a pre-existing structure that does have a concrete foundation. It's similar to what you would refer to as like a bungalow, but
Does anyone live in there?
No, nobody resides in there.
And there's no intent for anyone to live there in the future.
Not currently, no.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear because that would be a condition of the approval. Because if it is a second habitable structure, this would be a use variance because you can't have 2 principal residential structures on a single property. So
So when you say not currently, like, is the answer no? Or is this something you're looking to do in the future? Perhaps, because now's the time to say it, because that's a use variance.
No, we do not plan on it. The previous owner, prior to me purchasing the home, I believe that they did have somebody staying there.
Yeah.
But we do not plan on it.
All right, because ultimately it's going to wind up in your resolution if the board acts affirmatively that you cannot. So I just want to be very clear, like when you
Unless
say,
they come back.
well, right, if you wanted to do that, you would have to come back, but you would not be entitled to occupy that structure.
Understood.
Okay, just want to make sure. I am not opining one way or the other. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
we talked about the architectural makeup, right? The addition and the existing structure is going to be refaced, so it's all the same architectural siding. Just for the board's reference, this is in R2. There aren't any impervious coverage limits in the zone. I had a comment in there about possible dry wells. I'll leave that to the board. Maybe we can hear some public if there's any concern, adjacent property owners with drainage or anything like that. If there is, maybe, the applicant can ameliorate that with some possible dry wells for some of the roof leaders. I will note that they are reducing some impervious coverage with the driveway to make up for some of that expansion. So it's not just a straight 100% all new impervious. There is some credit for what they're taking out. Regarding any septic systems or wells, I'll just note for the applicant, they're going to have to get Monmouth County Board of Health approval. If there's no change in bedrooms, it's likely a formality, but you're just going to need to get a letter from them that there's no additional Approval is required. And is there any intent to, but you said there's no sidewalks proposed in the back currently, but is there any intent to put in any patios or anything?
No, not, it's just the deck.
Okay, well, one thing I do have to ask about the deck from looking at the plan, do you propose any areas where you're gonna have steps coming down?
Correct, and it will be within, within the granted area. It would not be back. And everything would.
Okay, so it would be, yeah, in the granted area, and also would be subjected to the same guidelines as the steps that the township has. Okay,
That's real all I have, Mr. Chair.
okay, thank you, Charlie.
So, Mr. Chair, I know we interrupted, but
Yes.
like, we need to hear some planning testimony to justify the relief.
Okay. So, now who's gonna give that testimony?
Not sure.
Yes. So,
Like, you have to provide testimony that shows that the positives outweigh the negatives, and there's a goal of zoning being advanced through the deviation from the zoning ordinance. And looking at that plan, I have to tell you, it's such a de minimis, and like, I get it, it's a double-edged sword, but it's such a de minimis encroachment. It's hard for me to understand why, from a planning perspective, you cannot pull the addition and the deck back 2 feet, 2+ feet. You can move the deck over. There's a whole entire area along the rear of that property, or rear of the structure, or even the proposed structure, that can accommodate the deck that doesn't require a setback relief. And similarly, the addition, again, I understand theoretically, internally, your programming may become problematic or difficult, but what goal of zoning are you advancing?
yeah, Jen, I understand exactly what you're saying. But I mean, a lot of times we've had residents come in on their own and giving their own testimony. I mean, let's see what they have to say as far as.
I
what-
agree. I'm just trying to say, like, we need something on the record substantiating the variance relief pursuant to the statute. That's all.
Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Erickson, what I would ask you to do is maybe give us, our planner and the board members, maybe a reason why you feel it's necessary to go this way, as far as opposed to going, just staying within the guidelines of the, the zoning.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Would it be possible for me to provide that information and testimony?
that would be up to the attorney, Mr. Bayer, is that?
Well, it would be akin to the Ericksons providing it. You're not providing it as an expert, right? Because you're an architect, not a planner. So.
Correct, I'm
but-
not.
So
I'm not
it would be lay
professional
testimony.
planner.
It would be lay testimony, Mr. Chairman, but the board can consider it
Okay, well, I think.
as lay testimony.
I would like to hear from her, she can testify, but also I'd like to hear from the applicants as well. So let's do that.
Okay. Okay. All right, as previously stated, the existing dwelling is over the side yard setback line. This is an existing nonconformity that cannot be rectified. The existing home is quite small for today's standards and quality of life. So while the Ericksons are nearly doubling the size of their home, the resulting square footage will be 1,598 square feet. This is still a very modestly sized home for this lot and area. The applicant is not looking to construct an expansive or extravagant kitchen and dining, but rather simply enlarge what they have to meet their needs. The proposed addition on the southerly side of the property encroaches 2.7 feet for a distance of 8 feet. That is approximately 18 square feet. To put this into perspective, it's the size of a large bedroom closet. Additionally, the deck will encroach the same amount for the same distance. The deck will not be covered by a roof or enclosed with walls, and therefore will not create the feeling of an obstruction. The existing home and addition are both 1 story. The proposed encroachment of the addition and deck is quite de minimis given the proposed work and the size of the property. Therefore, neither light, air, nor open space will be diminished by granting this relief. Proposed improvements to the home will promote a desirable and visual environment, enhance the architectural aesthetic of the subject property, positively impacts the neighboring properties through its fresh exterior and unique architectural design. These are all components that, promote or advance the purposes of the municipal land use law. Therefore, it's my professional opinion that the proposed improvements
You
and
can't give a
requested.
professional opinion on planning if that's what you're doing. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's not a
sorry.
professional opinion.
Okay. Therefore,
It's your opinion.
I'm sorry.
Just say it's your opinion.
Okay, thank you. Therefore, it is my opinion that this promotes the intent and purposes of the municipal land use law. It has no negative impact on its neighbors, community, or the township master plan, and that the positives outweigh the negatives.
So I just have to jump in, and I appreciate your argument. If it's 18 square feet, you don't need it. And you honestly did not provide any testimony advancing any goal of zoning. So, I mean, honestly, I get it. And I have no problem with these people adding to their home and making it more livable, etc. If it's 18 square feet, you can't figure out a way to not require variance relief for it. I mean, you yourself said it was so de minimis, it was only 18 square feet. So you can't figure out a way to design it that you don't need it. And you did not provide me with any information advancing any goal of zoning. And I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just saying, like, every variance needs testimony provided that you're advancing a goal of zoning. You have not provided one goal of zoning that's being advanced.
Well, maybe the residents can, Jen.
Maybe, but I'm just saying, if it's 18 square feet and it's so de minimis, there's plenty of room if you're eliminating that driveway on the north side of the property, you could capture that 18 square feet on that side and not encroach into a setback for both the deck and the addition.
If I may,
I respectfully, you provided testimony to justify the variance, and you did not provide one goal of zoning that was being advanced. And that's a problem.
Jennifer?
Yes.
May I ask you a question? Would it alleviate, and maybe I'm wrong, but would alleviate, I think they're trying to save the existing wall and just continue along the existing wall.
The existing structure is not the issue.
Well, but that's not what I'm
Back
saying.
there, what I'm
If-
saying is
I'm saying
that
if we compromise on the deck and allow them to do the room, the actual part of the structure, would that be a fair compromise?
I mean,
the
that's
deck-
it's up to you, but they still need testimony to justify the relief. And
Okay,
so what I'm saying is that because the existing structure is non-conforming, does not give you an automatic carte blanche to continue the nonconformity. You need a goal of zoning that you're advancing. And
Gotcha.
for that minimal amount of space, I understand what you're saying about the deck, and I don't agree that the deck can't be moved. It can be moved. And let's be honest, we've made people take out buildings that were in setbacks and buffers, etc. before. So in this particular instance, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just saying that it's such a de minimis intrusion. And so, yeah, we could just overlook it. That's fine. But why can't they give up 18 square feet? It's 18 square feet. Like, to comply, 18
Okay.
square feet to comply. So, like, to me, it's difficult from a planning perspective to reconcile why you absolutely need 18 square feet into a setback when you have an entirety of space on the other side where the building could get bumped out to meet the edge of that driveway that they're keeping, to keep that space, it's, for the addition and the deck, there's really no justification for it. I
Okay,
mean,
Jennifer, let's look at it another way. As
Sure.
far as the construction part of it, do you think that this conforming would not be an additional cost with the construction? I'm
I
just. trying-
don't, I don't.
Okay,
And by the way, construction cost is not a goal of zoning or a
yeah,
justification.
no, I didn't, okay.
Right, but I don't. I don't think that that's the case, but you guys can decide whatever you want. But I just want to be very clear that even when residents come, they still have to justify the relief that they're asking for. And I do think that these individuals were told by the director of community development that asking for relief for this was not going to be an easy lift. So, like, I honestly, like, there's all that space on the north side. Shift the addition 2 feet. We're talking 2.5 feet, 2.7 feet. I'm not asking them to take off 35 feet of a building. It's 2.5 feet of a proposed addition and a deck to get it out of the setback. Like, the goal is to make these sites more conforming, not to allow them to continue the nonconformity.
Okay, well noted.
Mm,
The
Mr.
Ericksons,
Chairman?
would you mind could you give us some of you, we haven't really heard from you about this. I'd just like to give the board a little chance to hear from your side.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. So the reason that we are proposing, what we're all looking at right now is the way that the house is currently laid out as far as the kitchen and everything. Like Michelle had touched on before, we plan on making that, like was stated, 18 square feet would be part of a dining area. And without following what we are currently looking at, it would substantially, 18 square feet in a dining is a decent amount. So it would directly, affect that. So where on the north side, that is the area that's being proposed, that addition is actually going to be you can see it at this point now, a bedroom area. We're not necessarily looking to extend the bedroom anymore because that is an addition. We were trying to gain more living space as far as the dining area, living area, and where the proposed kitchen is currently.
Okay, so basically, if we shrink the back to conform with the zoning, you're going to probably end up losing some space on your master bedroom.
Only if they cut it off as opposed to shifting it. Like, yeah, it's not going to be a perfect rectangle.
May I?
2 feet over, you could still get the depth that you need, and you wind up with additional width, which may shift the pantry over, shift the laundry over. Like it's not one or the other. It's just, this is the design that they would prefer. But
Well,
I mean, at the end of the day, you have to justify it. You need relief for it. I'm sorry, but that's the rule.
Because all of our plumbing and everything like that would then have to be moved over as well.
Why? Wait, why? You need your plumbing moved over because your dining room has to shift 2 feet?
All of our the gas lines and everything, wouldn't we have to move all of that over?
No, absolutely not. No.
Where the kitchen proposed here is where it currently is.
No, but your kitchen is going to stay the same place. Your dining room is going to be notched and your bedroom is going to be notched. The balance of your space internally will remain the same. You will not have to relocate your infrastructure. No, that's absolutely not true.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may
Yes.
interject?
Yes.
Okay. So part of the reason for the addition, and I understand, Ms. Beam, your concerns, I understand and respect your, I do. And this is not this is just what we want to do. I understand where you're coming from. The point is that, can we shift everything over? Sure, we can shift over everything. The problem is that the dining area will then, you were clipping out the rear corner, which then brings the dining room back to a size that doesn't function and can't hold the table, and you can't walk around it. So in reality, that's not a functional dining room.
So what
I
have they been
understand-
doing now? Wait, what have they been doing now? They have no functional
They
dining
don't-
room now?
So
None?
they have an eating kitchen with a 2-person table up against the wall. The applicants are a young couple. They want to have a family. This home is not conducive to having children. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
I get
The
it.
ability for
So
them to grow and
so
expand
fine.
in this existing neighborhood.
So find a goal of zoning that you're advancing. There's like 16 of them. Find one. Because you need a goal that you're advancing in order to substantiate the relief. And I'm not saying you can't do it, but as of right now, you haven't. So of the 16 goals of zoning under section 2 of the MLUL,
Okay.
just give me one and then I'm good with it. I just need one.
Of the 16 goals
Correct. Just find one and I'm
of section 2. Okay.
That's all I'm asking. Just give me a goal of zoning that's being advanced, and then I'm good with it.
Okay. I addressed 2C that there is no negative impact, provide adequate light, air, and open space. Okay. I addressed that one. The development does not, and the proposed work of D does not conflict with neighboring municipalities, the state or the.
So in section 2 of the MLUL, there's 16 goals, A to whatever.
Yes, that's what I'm reading from.
Right, but what you're saying is that you're moving to the negative criteria. Focus on the positive criteria. So let me ask you a question. Is the house immediately to the south, right on the setback line? Do you know? Yes or no?
The existing house?
Not their house, the house immediately to the south. The house that's
That house is not near the setback line.
So encroaching, let's just say, in theory, the encroachment of an addition, I mean, the deck, we're gonna deal with that separately, but the addition of the
That's okay.
house, okay? So let's focus on the addition of the house. So the addition of the house following the existing building line, that's 2.7 feet into the setback,
Mm-hmm.
which typically requires 20 feet and there's 17 point whatever feet, right?
Yes.
And however, what is immediately to the south of them? Is there adequate setback between what they're proposing and the neighbors to the south?
Is there adequate separation?
Setback. So are they up against the setback line immediately to the south and this is going to encroach further towards those houses?
I can't say, I can't speak or testify to what their property is. I don't have that information.
Who's doing this? Is this Charlie?
It
Charlie,
must,
are you doing this?
Yeah,
What's,
You were trying to see if there's 40 feet in between, 20 on each
what's that?
side.
What's
and
that
the
box a
south
little farther
property
back? What's the box?
setback
What,
condition,
yeah,
zoning.
what's that? Yep.
I'd have to go to Street View. Give me a
I
second.
don't care, but like, what's the setback? What's the setback there? Do you
Oh,
know?
okay. Sorry, hold on a second.
Fine.
$35, 36 feet plus or minus. That's just between the two structures. Jen, I think you're muted.
Sorry. So it's like, what's it, like 17 plus feet on either side of the property line, plus or minus?
Yeah,
So extending that, which is at like 2.7 feet into the setback, which is going to be up against whatever that is. I don't know what that box is there. Like we said, Charlie, I'm not sure what that is. It looks like a extension to the house.
It's actually a deck, I believe.
No, it looks like it's enclosed, right? Charlie?
Like a gazebo, I believe. It just has like a roof to it. There's no walls.
a lanai perhaps.
So the impact of this, which is 2.7 feet, and I'm not, listen, I get it's 2.7 feet. I'm not saying it's a half an inch off the property line. I get that. So what I would submit to the board, if we're looking to, let's say, quote unquote, promote a desirable visual environment, right, which is a goal of zoning, would the applicant be amenable to beefing up the landscaping between their house and the neighbor in order to ensure that there's no negative impact with the 2.5 foot, 2.7 foot encroachment for this addition on the neighboring property? Is that something that the applicant would?
Or an
would-
example, I mean, putting up like arborvitae's to set
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly.
anyway.
Yeah. We just wanted to start with the, the construction addition to the house and then, obviously do final landscaping and everything after the fact.
So
Once-
so would you, let's just say, if the board were to act favorably on the addition in the setback, would you agree to work with Shari, who is our certified tree expert, who I think is on the meeting, to come up with a reasonable, I'm not looking to cost you like hundreds of thousands of dollars, like a reasonable buffer there to quote unquote mitigate the de minimis intrusion into the setback?
Yes, we would agree to that.
Yeah, like we said, we plan on putting up, privacy shrubs anyway.
I mean, as of right
Between
now,
our neighbors.
there's like a dilapidated chain link fence from, probably 40 or 50 years ago that's there now that we want to completely, remove and do arborvitae's for privacy and such.
So I think if there's a commitment to beefing up the buffering between the two properties and the commitment to ensuring that any addition is consistent with the aesthetics of the existing home, I think we could probably opine that this was promoting a desirable visual environment, which is a goal of zoning.
Right, and I provided testimony to that.
Okay, well, I think we're at a good point now, so I would leave it at that, and I think Sherry would work with you, and I think that's good that you make a compromise like that. It will go a long ways, let me tell you.
I would request, however, that the deck be shifted out of the setback. Because that doesn't impact your internal programming. You still have access to it. You still have the ability to utilize it along the rear of your entire structure. If we could commit to shifting that like the 2.7 feet out of the setback to not have any unnecessary structures, right? So I understand the extension, right? But the deck, if we could shift that, I don't know what you're doing here. The 2.7 feet out of the setback. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And exactly like he's showing, to just have it like that. Right.
That is
still there and it's still accessible off of your dining room, but would just be shifted a little bit. Maybe it's not the entirety of your dining room, but a portion of it. But that at least moves out of the setback. With the addition of the shrubbery, I think that like I would be comfortable saying that the statutory burden has been satisfied.
okay.
I saw you guys nodding, so I'm assuming
Yep.
you're okay with that.
Yes, we are.
Okay, well then at this time, I want to let our board members make any comments they have to, up to this point. Glenn, Matt, anybody wants to make a comment?
I'm Mr. Chairman, I'm admiring Jennifer's reasoning. That was an amazing compromise. So it sounds great.
Anybody else would like to comment?
I'm good, Mr. Chair. I agree with Glenn.
Mr. Chair, I'll just say that I want to thank this young family for being here in Howell and wanting to improve their home and ultimately start a family. So I appreciate you guys staying here in Howell and trying to grow some roots here.
Thank
I
you.
do understand the hardship, that exists right now with the fact that part of the home is in the setback and you wanted that facade to just follow one, you didn't want to bump it in, you know what I mean?
Right.
You wanted to just continue it. I appreciate the compromise by shifting the deck so that it's no longer in the setback.
Yes, thank you.
I think that's a reasonable, compromise for everybody here. That's all I wanted to say.
No, lifelong resident of Howell. We don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. So
That's good to hear that.
thank you.
Jose, do you have any comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
could I just have clarification on what exactly is in that second unit or that second structure in the back?
Okay, I'll let the applicants answer that.
So like I had previously stated, it's what I would refer or what one would refer to as like a bungalow. It does have a door that goes in. There is carpet in there. There is a single mattress that was there from the previous owner, which was never removed. Other than that, it's not in the best of shape, to be honest with you. And like I said, we currently just use it for storage of lawn equipment, chainsaws, weed trimmers, etc.
No kitchen or cooking appliances?
It looks like at one point there probably was some type of small kitchenette in there, but it has since been removed. There is no heat, no electric that is currently working in there or anything like that.
Okay, I'm fine. A second, just so you know, Mr. Chair, a second kitchen would trigger our mother-daughter ordinance. So as long as I would suggest to making it a condition that during the inspection process, just for documentation purposes, that we would be allowed to do an inspection of the second structure just to verify that there is no second living quarter on the property.
So noted, John. I think that's a good idea. We'll have that in the resolution.
Can we
Thank you.
ensure that the electricity is completely disconnected so there's no fires?
Yeah, so when I purchased the home, it was, the obviously our current home that we live in, it was set up like that. So there is like a panel with the old bus style fuses, which all the fuses are removed, and there's nothing connected to the main dwelling as far as powering anything out there.
Okay, we'll have that in the resolution then.
Mr. Chair, one more thing. I know that there was an issue with the survey that the person who did the survey may no longer be alive, or it was unsure. Are our board professionals satisfied with the survey that they've presented?
I
Yeah,
am.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, what I would just say is as a condition of any approval, the applicant, is going to be required to submit an as-built survey for the final constructed location of all their improvements. That should be provided to the engineering department for the closeout of all building and construction permits. At that time, should anything deviate from the approval, obviously they'd be flagged and have to return to the board to amend that approval.
Okay,
And then I just want to note another item there was in my letter, and I apologize, I missed it. Review of aerial imagery. It does appear to be there's an additional shed on the structure along the southerly property line. Can the applicant just give us some testimony on the use of that, the height, and approximately like a setback, and whether they got any township permits for that previously, or the prior owner, whether they got any township permits for that?
That just uses the house a lawnmower and an ATV. It's probably about 5 foot, I would say, off the setback line. And it doesn't have a permanent foundation. It's just on a gravel bed of stone. So it is removable.
So it could be shifted to, so what's the height of it, would you say?
I mean, I've honestly never measured it. If I had to guess, I'd probably say about 10 feet, maybe 9-10 feet.
To the highest point to the ridge?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I think, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, over 10,000 square feet on residential, it's required to be set back the building height. So I think it technically requires variance relief if they didn't get prior approvals for it. So I just want to put that on the record. Having said that, I don't know how the notice was written as far as any additional relief and anything like that. If it's something that could be shifted just to comply, if it's not on a permanent foundation, I think that might be the simplest thing for the record. Is that something the applicant would be willing to do?
Yes, if need be, yes.
Yeah.
okay.
Charlie, to do what? Did you say remove it? I heard.
No, just shift it northerly to comply with the setback requirement for accessory structures.
Okay,
Like I said, John, I believe because it's over 10,000 square foot residential, its setback requirement for sheds is equal to the building height. So
as long as that shed is under 120 square feet and no taller than 8 feet high, You could do a 0-foot setback. We would just need to know what the measurements are. Other than that, if it doesn't comply with either or both of those requirements, the height will be the setback.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Nothing else from any board members?
Just to note, is the neighbors, whatever that ugly thing is that Charlie was just arrowing on, is that of concern to anybody? Yeah, what is that?
Well, that's, I think that's up to, John would be addressing that. I mean, it's not really our, I mean,
All right, it looks like it's in their property, though.
yeah, that's, well, based on,
Mr. Cantor, these are just GIS parcel lines, so they're not
Oh,
survey
okay,
grade.
okay.
Yeah, it just gives you a general reference of approximately where the property lines are, so.
okay. Okay, since we have no more questions from the board members, we will have to go to public. Do we have a motion to go to public?
Moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Eileen. We'll go to public now.
If you are calling in, you could press star 9 to raise or lower your hand and star 6 to mute and unmute yourself. There is no one currently raising their hand.
Okay, let's have a motion to close the public.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, I think we're at the point now. Ms. Stressheim or the applicants, if they want to give a final comment, and then we'll go to a motion.
I'd like to thank you all for your time tonight.
Yes,
I
thank
appreciate
you very
everything.
much. We are hoping that we can, get everything approved and like was stated, we just want to expand a family and have a good, solid home for them.
Okay, I see, Sherry, you're on the screen. I see. So you are familiar with what Jen was saying, that they'll work with you as far as providing adequate screening.
Yes, that's fine. You can reach out to my office.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Bayer, anything final that we should, or can we go to motion?
You could go to motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody? Okay, can I have a motion? What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a
Second.
motion to approve and
Second.
second, who was that?
Mr. Rebel, Mike Rebel.
Yeah, I know you motioned to approve. Who was the second?
Mark motioned,
Mark
Mike.
He was the motion. I was
Mark
the second.
made the motion.
Okay, it was, okay. Okay, Eileen, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cantor,
With the compromise so stated, I vote yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yeah, with everything we talked about and the compromises, absolutely yes.
Mr. Mertens,
I respect Jen. Thanks for coming up with a good solution to this. You're always, you're the best. And for the applicants, I'm sorry that we had to go through this, but I think in the long run, I think everybody's happy now and we can move on. And I am going to vote yes as well.
Thanks.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Rubel,
I just wanted to say, Mr. and Mrs. Erickson, enjoy your new home. Thanks for working with the board and the board professionals. Yes.
Thank you.
and Mr. Parisi.
Yes, I echo what Michael just said. Wish you all the best.
The
Much appreciated.
application is approved.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Have a good evening, everybody.
You as well.
Not the board, just the applicants there. I think at this time, if everybody's agreeable, we'll do a 5-minute break before our next case. I think we need a 5-minute. Do I have any objections to that?
No objection.
You
Okay,
know, I'm
Eileen.
good. You know I'm good with it, Rich.
Yeah, I know, Matt. I didn't have to ask you. Okay, Eileen, can you, we'll go into a little break.
The board will now take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 8:16.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
The
Thank
meeting will
you.
now reconvene.
Thank you. Next case that we have tonight is case number BA 19-17 F/6520 LLC. Type major site plan. Description, application of 6,520 feet LLC. I'm sorry, application of 6520 LLC is applicant and owner seeking final major site plan approval to construct the previous approved site condition, restricting the use of the 15,364 square feet retail building to solely a furniture store and utilize the existing 6,227 square feet warehouse building as a multi-tenant warehouse space. In parentheses, 2,813.5 square feet per tenant with associated office space, 300 square feet per tenant. Increase the existing parking from 23 to 77 spaces in storm water management system with infiltration basin in the rear of the property to the west of the parking area on premises known as Block 71, Lot 15, 6520 US Highway 9 South. Expiration date is December 24th, 2022.
If I may, Mr. Chairman and Ms. Kusa, this is Jared Pape's application. I have the next one. So if you bring Jared Pape in and I'll go back out.
Thank you, Mr. Pape.
No problem. Thank you.
There's Jared.
Hi,
Hi, Jared. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, board professionals. My name's Jared Pape. I am an attorney with the law firm of Heilbrunn Pape, and our firm represents your applicant, 6520 LLC. Before we begin, I would like to ask if our notice package was received and found to be adequate to provide this board jurisdiction to hear this case.
Your notice was received and it's adequate.
Thank you. As was mentioned, just by way of background, the applicant received preliminary major site plan approval with use variance and bulk variance relief on December 7, 2020 to allow the existing 15,364 square foot retail building to be used as a general retail building and to use the existing 6,227 square foot warehouse building as a multi-tenant warehouse space with 2 units, each with associated office space. The applicant is now seeking final major site plan approval. There are no significant changes to the plan. As for witnesses, we have Peter Strong, who's the applicant's professional engineer, who will be addressing the limited revisions to the plan, the technical comments set forth in the professional reports, and to address the status of outside agency approvals. We also have Steve Radasti, the applicant's architect, who's available. I do not plan to call him, but he is on and he's available if there's any questions of him. So with that, I would like to turn to Mr. Strong as our first witness.
Okay, well, first we'll get everybody sworn in. Mr. Bayer?
Yes, Mr. Strong, does Mr. Radasti want to do this just in case, or can't hurt?
Jared, are you going to have do we need any planning testimony?
We don't, and honestly, we don't need Mr. Radasti's testimony either.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll stick to Mr. Strong. Mr. Strong, raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name and spell your last for the record.
Peter W. Strong, S-T-R-O-N-G. I'm with Crest Engineering at 100 Reich Drive in Millstone, New Jersey.
Witness is sworn, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Peter, just to have it on testimony, I've seen your face many times, just put the record on record.
Yes, I'm a graduate civil engineer from what was then Newark College of Engineering, now New Jersey Institute of Technology. I've been a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey since 1975. And I've I was the principal owner of Crest Engineering Associates since 1981 till I semi-retired in 2018, and still working for the firm. Still a licensed professional engineer. My license is active. and,
Okay, sounds good. We accept your credentials. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Strong, let's begin. I mentioned there are some limited revisions to the plan, and there's two things I'd like to note. One is that there was a DEP permit that was required and was no longer required. And the second was the addition of a 6-foot fence along the northern portion of the property. So could you address the DE permit that was required and is no longer required?
Yes. Do we want to see a plan at all? You want me to share my screen or anything, or?
If
Not
you
yet.
could, because we do have some members that I think it would be good for them to see it. Who maybe,
Mr. Chair, I'll share my screen. I have the plan already
okay,
up.
that'd be good. Thanks, Charlie.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is just sheet number 3 of 11 of the applicant's site plan.
Right. Excuse me. All the way on the left-hand side of the drawing, you see the detention basin, and you see the modified tree line that goes along the outside of that with a little bump out right there. That is where the discharge from the detention basin is going to be. And previously, when we received preliminary approval, preliminary approval, the wetlands line was slightly different. And when we went back and got, it expired, the previous line. We went back and got a new approval from DEP for the new wetlands line and buffer. And when we did, it actually moved the line slightly to the west, the left side of the drawing, and gave us room to put the discharge point from the detention basin outside of the buffer, and therefore we do not need to get a DEP permit for that discharge point. So that's one of the changes to the site. The other is up on the northerly side of the property with the boundary with the adjoining property. One of the comments at the time of the preliminary approval was that especially as you get towards the front, there's a limited buffer, supposed to be 50 feet along the entire line, but due to the existing metal warehouse, the driveway out to Route 9 and the front portion of the L-shaped former furniture store, now retail building, we couldn't provide that 50-foot buffer. So we were asked to enhance the area along the property line by adding a fence, a wooden fence, to help buffer the property from the adjoining residential structure over there. And in addition to putting in landscaping where we could to enhance the streetscape, the sidescape there. So those are the two major changes to the plan.
Just wanted to point out those changes for the board. We received reports. We received an engineering report from Mr. Cunliffe dated November 9, 2022. We received a planning report from Ms. Bean dated December 5th, 2022, and we received a licensed tree expert review from Ms. Spiro dated today, December 12th, 2022. Mr. Strong, can you confirm that you have reviewed those reports and that you agree to comply with any technical comments in those reports?
I have reviewed all those reports, and yes, we can and will comply with the technical requirements of those reports.
Great. There was in those reports, there was a request for the status of outside agency approvals. I would like to take a moment just to go through where we are with those. Could you give us an update on outside agency approvals?
Yes, we have Monmouth County Board of Health approval. We have Freehold Soil Conservation District approval. As Mr. Cunliffe pointed out in his report, because we've changed the discharge point of the detention basin, we now have to kind of get a modified SCD report, but that's relatively simple. The Howell MUD has given us preliminary sewer and water service approval. This site is already connected to both the Manasquan Regional Sewage Authority, main and Route 9, and going through the MRRSA approval and discharge and operations, so that there's no issues there with regards to sewer, and we're connected to the New Jersey American Water Company main as well on Route 9. We have Monmouth County Planning Board, a letter of no jurisdiction on their part for this application. We have a Fire Bureau memo from 2019 with no objection to this project. And going back to the DEP, again, we have a new LOI, which I provided to Mr. Cunliffe. He's looking for the map that went along with the permit of the wetlands, and I will give him that. No problem. We have that. And highway occupancy permit, we were asked to get a permission to install a sidewalk along the frontage along Route 9, which we did get an approval from the DOT to do that. The permit expired in September, but that is not a problem to get that reinstated or extended. So we will be doing that as well. Lastly, soil import export. Your ordinance requires that if we're moving 600 cubic yards of soil on or off the site or more, that we need a permit. And we've done an earthwork that says we're required to get about 3,500 cubic yards. So we will be applying for a permit to do the import export of soil for the site.
Thank you for that review. And just to address a couple final comments. In the reports, there were comments about that the plans should comply as closely as possible with the architectural design standards for articulation. If it's acceptable to the board, we would propose that the applicant's architect, Mr. Radasti, work with Ms. Beam to make sure that those plans are provided to her satisfaction.
That I'm fine with. I just have a couple questions. Mr. Strong, I know you're putting in sidewalk right along Route 9, correct?
Yes.
But you're asking for a waiver to connect that sidewalk from Route 9 to the building. And I'm not opposed to it. I just want to make sure it's very clear. We're not anticipating that like members of the public are just going to aimlessly wander in here, correct?
No, not really.
And so there's no reason to have that connection, correct?
I don't think so. It doesn't seem like it would serve any significant purpose in this particular application.
It would just add additional impervious coverage to the application, correct?
And it would, yes.
And then secondly, there's another provision in our streetscape design, which requires like benches, tables, bike racks, etc. Would it be possible for the applicant just to install a bike rack to comply with that requirement in the event that someone's coming here on a bike? I know it's a highly unlikely scenario, but that would eliminate.
Yeah, I think we could put a bike rack or something along the front area, and maybe add some benches along the front.
I don't think you need to go that far. I think a simple bike rack would satisfy the requirement.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Charlie.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I just want to give a little background just to remind the board on this application because we do have some new members. So this site has existed for a long time, at least since the early 2000s. This front building, this little jut out in the back here, was approved for like warehousing for a furniture use for the front part of the structure. The applicant, when they came back for us and used some preliminary, they sought to eliminate a condition that restricted that just to warehouse. As part of that, obviously now going from warehouse to retail space, there's an additional parking requirement. So the applicant, expanded the site development to the back to provide additional parking to accommodate that additional retail. There was also an existing Butler style building in the back here that they wanted to convert to like a multi-tenant warehouse space. Warehousing, I think is very generous for this. It's more so of like a flex kind of space here with just how small these units are, each with one like a little 300 square foot office. They have loading areas associated with that. I think as part of the preliminary, we had comments about, circulation pedestrian to the front of the building. They provided some additional striping and some bollards just to make it clear how pedestrians get from the parking area to the front building. So I think, what Mr. Strong testified to, I take no exception to. It's really just getting their outside agency approvals as part of the final site plan. I just want to put on the record again for the board, there was restrictions on to the size of vehicles into this site. It was like SU 40 or smaller. So this wasn't like tractor trailers coming in and out of here all times of the day. It's really, smaller type SU 40, smaller type vehicles. Mr. Strong alluded to the Monmouth County Board of Health. So they did take no issue because this is all serviced by public water and sewer. They did have a comment about an existing well, if it's to be repurposed for irrigation purposes, just getting an updated permit for that. If not, get a certificate of abandonment for it. And then they also had a note in their review about if there is any intent to put any kind of like food service in one of the vacant spaces in the front building, that obviously that would require approval on their end, as well as from, the utility department. The basin that's proposed in the back, there's no changes to what came in preliminary. My only comment is obviously they're going to need to record the O&M manual by deed, give the town a blanket access easement for any maintenance purposes should the applicant not follow through on their requirement. The applicant did also agree to Title 39 enforcement as part of the use and preliminary, so they need to follow through on final with that. Trying to see if there's anything else. Fire official did review the layout as part of the preliminary, and this is pretty much the exact same thing. I had a minor comment about the lighting, just the details need to just jive with what's indicated on the schedule. Pretty straightforward. That's really all I have, Mr. Chair. This is just tying up all the loose ends as part of the final site plan, which the applicant has seemed to do so.
Charlie, for new members, could we get a, do you have a satellite view of this property?
Yeah, so this is just Google Earth, and I'm going back to 2002, just so you can see that this has existed there for some time. Like I said, there was a prior approval when they built the furniture store in the front here to get a warehouse for it. And then also, I think the second existing building in the back here. This is present day. So obviously, there was some expansion to the back for some gravel for parking. As part of the use and preliminary site plan application, we made the applicant design as this was the existing condition. So all this additional, gravel that was installed, that's all been factored into the new design, and, now it's going to be paved and everything like that. So.
Okay. Anybody else would like to add to this?
Mr. Chair, I just, the only comments that I had left in my report were just some math really calculations. They didn't count as many trees as they are providing on the site to deduct from their contribution replacement requirement. So that was really, I just need those numbers corrected on the plan, so there's no confusion when it comes time to clear.
Okay, Mr. Pate, that's
no problem.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, the only thing else that I have to add, and I know Mr. Rodasi is here, and I don't really think there's a need to bring him up because I have worked with him on numerous projects throughout the town. He sent me documents probably 2 years ago. He sent them to me again today. I think they're fine, but regardless, he is committed to working with me to make sure that the architecture is satisfactory. And I would submit to the board, if you act affirmatively, I will work with him to make sure that the architecture is what you guys want.
Sounds good to me, Mr. Pate.
We have nothing further to present.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Does the front of the building have those poles that prevent cars from going into the building from the parking lot?
No.
Should it? I mean,
I
is
don't
it,
believe
is
it
it, is it not an ordinance in Howell?
It absolutely is. If there are spaces fronting into a building, there's now a requirement in the ordinance that some kind of protective measure, whether it be a bollard or like a planter or something of that nature, whether it's built into the architecture or whatever. But can you go back to, Charlie, go back to the site plan?
Oh, site plan, sorry.
That's no problem. So any parking space that fronts to the building, regardless if there's a sidewalk in front of it, is required to have a protective measure. You're right, Mr. Mertens, that's a requirement. Whether it's a bollard in every space, and that's gonna be the 15 spaces in the front, the 8 spaces in the back, or some planter or some kind of like architectural, which I don't think they want to do, because I think that's going to be difficult on with an existing building. But there's got to have to be some kind of like protective measure, otherwise relief needs to be sought. So Mr. Pape, I would submit that perhaps your professionals work with my office, Sherry's office, and Charlie's office to ensure that compliance with that requirement is met. Is that okay?
Yes, that is perfectly acceptable.
I think that's good, Mr. Mertens, and that 100% is an ordinance requirement, yes.
Okay. Thanks, Glenn. Anybody else from the board has a question or comment?
No, sir.
Seeing none, Mr. Pape, do we have to go to public even though?
I defer to the board and board's counsel.
I would.
Okay, that's what I suggest as well.
I would like to make a motion to go to public, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Hughes, thank you. Have a second.
Second.
Glenn, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Sherry, Sherry. Sorry, little brain freeze here. Eileen?
The meeting will now be open to public. If you are calling in, you press *9 to raise or lower your hand and *6 to mute and unmute yourself.
Take it home.
Nobody has raised their hand yet.
Okay, motion to close.
So moved.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, Mr. Pape, do you have a closing comment before we motion?
Nothing further. We would just ask that the board act favorably on this application. Thank you.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, it seems that our professionals, as always, are on top of things, and it looks like this is moving towards direction that we intended it to be. So I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Orozco, seconds. Eileen, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
With the findings of facts on the record and with the recommendation of our planner, I vote yes as well.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Rubel,
Yes.
and Mr. Parisi.
Yes.
Application is approved.
Thank you all. We appreciate your assistance. Have a good night.
You too.
Good night.
Okay, I think at this time we should move on unless somebody has a reason to take a break. Matt, are you okay? Gotta ask.
Yeah, I'm doing all right now, Rich. I'm good
Okay,
to
well,
go,
let's
bud.
go ahead and let's get started on next case. Excuse me. Case number BA 22-02 SP, also known as KL Land Corporation, preliminary and final site plan with ancillary variance relief. Application to K-Land Corp. as applicant and Advantage Properties LLC as owners, seeking preliminary and final major site plan with ancillary variance relief to construct a 3-story, 73,839 square foot self-storage building with 1,073 square feet of associate first floor office space and associated site improvements on premise known as Block 132, Lots 1, 3, 4, and 5, Sunnyside Road and US Highway 9. The applicant was granted use variance approval, and that was on here. It says early 2022, but I believe that was May 23rd, 2022, if I'm correct. Okay, Mr. Pape, I'll let you start off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board's professionals. Kenneth Pape, on behalf of your applicant, this is an application for site plan approval, both preliminary and final, on an application that this board heard earlier this year and granted use variance relief to allow a multi-story climate-controlled self-storage building. And if we could, just Ms. Kuso or Mr. Bayer, if you could confirm receipt of our notices and confirm the board has jurisdiction of the application.
Well, this has been received and sufficient.
I concur.
Thank you. Thank you. In an effort to be as efficient as the board just was with that application, I'm going to make a brief opening statement. The applicant, when we came before this board with use variance relief, went through the paces with your professionals. And I say that with respect. We worked on a lot of the landscaping. We worked on the stormwater and the grading of the property. We worked on the parking and the circulation. A lot of the site plan elements became incorporated into the use variance plan before this board granted the relief that the applicant requested. And that gives us a high foundation as we start today. The presentation that we'll make to you is going to be through Michael Marinelli, who is a professional engineer with Menlo Engineering. He testified as the engineer in this spring when the application was presented to you for use variance. Since that time, the applicant has secured most of the outside agency approvals, and Mr. Marinelli will address them. But there are three that I would like to, just in an effort to be efficient, I wanted to address up front. One is that the Environmental Commission asked that we provide them with a phase 1 environmental audit. And I did personally deliver to Lisa Dowd in May the full phase 1 environmental audit. And the second is that the fire official asked, after he issued a letter indicating that he was comfortable with our plan. It was a result of multiple meetings with him, but he also asked that he be consulted at the time that the fire striping is installed on the property. And I wanted you to know that we've agreed to that. I tried to reach the fire chief all last week and today only to learn that he's on holiday returning tomorrow, but we had made those arrangements earlier. And the last is the Shade Tree Commission had an outstanding request. They asked that a full woodland management plan be submitted. And if you look at the plans that were submitted to the board and to your professionals at sheet 10, that woodland management was filed. I just wanted those, because they're important, I know, to the zoning board. I wanted you to know that the applicant had addressed all of those. The applicant also, through their professional engineer and architect, reduced the size of the building. The footprint, you'll recall that there was a request that the building size be reduce the footprint so as to create a greater opportunity for perimeter circulation. And that was done. The actual building size is now 73,839 square feet, a reduction of about 5,000 square feet from the original plan. I do have the opportunity to present to you the testimony of Mr. Steve Radasti, if requested. The board really went through, and Ms. Beam really went through revisions at the time of his use variance. So I will only call him if requested.
Mr. Pape, I don't mean to interrupt your opening, but Mr. Adasi has been back and forth with my office. It's up to the board, but I don't see the need. If the board would like to see it, that's up to them, but I do not see the need. Steve and I have been working together on a number of projects for years, and what he's provided me, I think, is in keeping with what the board is looking for, but if you guys want to see it, that's up to you, but I don't necessarily think it's necessary.
Thank you. I am most pleased that Mr. Radasti has earned your respect and that you speak of him that way.
One of
Really?
very few, let me be very clear.
Mr. Radasti, don't let that go to your head. Mr. Pankey, Carl Pankey is here. He is our traffic expert. He testified at the time of the use variance. We've done nothing but improve the circulation. I didn't intend to call Mr. Pankey, but I wanted you to know he's here, and that would be again for Ms. Beam or Mr. Cunliffe. And with that, as hopefully an efficient opening, I'd like to ask Mr. Marinelli to be sworn.
Okay, Mr. Bayer, could you swear in?
Michael Marinelli. Is he in?
I'm looking for him.
I don't see him yet. There he is.
Okay.
Your mic just unmute. Okay, good.
Mr.
Yep, sorry.
Marinelli, please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Sure, it's Michael Marinelli, Marinelli of Menlo Engineering, located at 261 Cleveland Avenue, Highland Park, New Jersey. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I provided the testimony back in May for the use variance portion of this application, and my credentials are still valid.
We accept your credentials. Thank you.
Thank you. Before Mr. Marinelli begins, I want to point out that the use variance relief that was granted was a long and detailed use variance resolution, and there were every promise that the applicant had made to this board was memorialized in that resolution. I could go through all of them, and if requested, I actually have a digest of that. It's 2 full pages. But I will tell you that every commitment that the applicant made to this board at the time of use variance, we bring forward this evening and ask that if you favorably consider the site plan to incorporate all of those revisions, all of those commitments in any approving resolution. Mr. Marinelli, I'm going to ask if you could do an executive overview presentation of the site plan. And do you need assistance with screen sharing, or can you?
No, I can do it. What I'd like to first share is the existing conditions exhibit, just to reorient the board as to the site that we're speaking of. Can everybody see the rendering? It's entitled Kaplan at Sunnyside, Block 132, lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Existing conditions exhibit, dated 12/12/2022.
Yes. And
okay.
Irene, could you give us the A number for this?
Sure. In the listed exhibits, it was A13.
Thank you.
As you can see, this is an aerial representation of the subject property. North is in the up direction. The lot as designated as block 132, lots 1, 3, 4, and 5 on the tax maps of Howell Township. The property is located on the northwest intersection of Route 9, which runs on the right side of the page, and Sunnyside Road that runs left to right along the bottom side of the page. Overall, the property is approximately 2.54 acres. Is located entirely within the HD highway development zone within the municipality. As you can see from the surrounding areas, there are residential uses to the immediate west and southwest, but a majority of the commercial properties or properties along the Route 9 corridor are generally mixed use and or commercial uses all up and down Route 9 that you would expect in this area. As you can see, the lot in the existing condition was vacant. It did have some structures here previously, which have since been removed. But this was the site in general. Now, the entire property line along the eastern side is actually DOT, Route 9 jurisdiction. The property only has frontage, a short municipal frontage along the Sunnyside Road, again on the south side. I will now switch to my second exhibit, This one is entitled Kaplan at Sunnyside, Block 132, lots 1, 3, 4, and 5, site plan exhibit dated 12/12/2022.
Is this A14, sir?
That is correct. This would be A14 in the list of exhibits. This exhibit is a rendered site plan of the submitted site plan, obviously colorized and put on the same aerial photo you saw on A13, and then supplemented with additional features, including lighting, landscaping, and general site features that are proposed. As Mr. Pape had stated, we were here for use variance back in May, where a plan very similar to this was presented to the board. Actually, we had an alternate plan, one with a slightly larger building, and it was agreed upon in order to provide the necessary 50-foot residential buffers on the northern and western sides that we would shrink the proposed structure. And in accordance with that use variance approval, we've done so. The applicant is proposing to construct a 3-story self-storage facility, totaling 73,839 square feet, 1,075 square foot of which is office space, located in the southeast corner of the structure. As was true with the original use variance approval, the square footage is exactly the same that was provided. The height is the exact same that was provided. Additionally, the parking layout, providing 20 spaces where 20 spaces are required, meeting ordinance requirements. There are 25-foot minimum drive aisles with oversized 10 by 19-foot parking stalls proposed. Again, no change from the existing use variance approval. There is a 30-foot cart width that circulates the building in the clockwise direction, which would allow for a loading zone immediately in front of the doors for this the first floor of the self-storage facility, and a 20-foot bypass lane to go all the way around. This met the criteria of the township, providing adequate loading space on site, as well as fire truck circulation, meeting the fire chief's review and approval. This is slightly different, however, than the original approval in the direction. The geometry has stayed the exact same. When we were here for use variance back in May, the direction of flow was counterclockwise in a one-way direction around the building. After going into site planning and talking with the operator, these facilities are generally better suited for a clockwise direction of circulation. Reason being, you could provide the key card on the driver's side and then allow those cars to pull up alongside the building and exit their car safely, as opposed to in the opposite direction. It's a little bit more or not as convenient. So we've just changed the direction. Of course, in doing that, we had to change the orientation of the dumpster enclosure so that it would still be utilized by a front end dumpster garbage truck. Again, that is in the northwest corner of the site. Same location, just oriented slightly differently. In addition to that, as a condition of, now the conditions of our use variance required us to provide some additional things. As Mr. Pape had stated, we had gone through a majority of the stormwater management and to the satisfaction of Mr. Cunliffe, but things like the type of fencing that were to surround the site, including the residential buffer, specifically along the southeast corner, as you can see, and immediately to the west of the, the southwest corner, because immediately to the west is an existing single-family home. We were also required, as a condition of that approval, to buffer the existing deciduous tree mature growth plantings that were on the northern and western side, with a number of, and you can see in this exhibit, additional deciduous trees as well as ornamental trees and evergreen trees to enhance the existing buffer that was to remain along those two front property lines. In all, we provided 24 shade trees, 109 evergreen trees, 39 ornamentals, and 93 shrubs. So, we've provided a significant amount of landscape on the subject property. However, it's still deficient from the tree replacement ordinance for the particular town. So the applicant is seeking, should you grant approval for site plan, to contribute to the tree ordinance fund in lieu of planting the deficiency and replacement trees.
If I may interrupt you, we're submitting this plan to the board for their consideration. We fully understand that Ms. Spiro has the right to require additional landscaping. So before we go to a calculation of tree funding, we would first ask that Ms. Spiro look at our plan and help us find any additional room for landscape plantings if any remain.
Okay, Sherry, I want to ask you, that's probably why the shade tree didn't get a calculation on the woodland management, because you were deciding on how many plants we could put back on the site.
Yeah, I mean, so right now the site is, as you can see, it's planted very heavily. The one area, I'd mentioned this in my letter, I don't know if you want to discuss it now, but there is a proposal to save the trees along the ramp. However, based on clearing and how the individual trees look when the trees get cleared on the internal side of the site, it's possible not many will remain in that DOT side of the ramp.
Ms. Spiro, if I could address, I know that Ms. Michael's already on this one too, but if I could,
sure.
There's an opportunity. There's going to be some green area there where we may be able to replant. It will require the DOT's permission because it's their right of way. Because the DOT previously granted permission to plant the white pines that were there, we anticipate that they'll say yes. So our offer is that we'll promptly notify the DOT of the request, work with them on a landscape plan, and to the extent they allow further plantings, we'll do so, and then do the final calculation with you. Is that acceptable?
Yes, and it is certainly an area that we could fit a lot more trees, based on what ends up remaining after clearing. So yeah, I would find that acceptable if the board likes that idea.
And while we're talking about that end side of the property, would it be appropriate to ask if you could share your guidance on the use of grasses in certain areas? We've gone through your report and find it acceptable. If you could assist us in presenting it to the board.
Sure. I had asked, can you zoom in a little more on the plan? Yeah, right in that, yeah, at the entrance to the site, there is a narrow lawn strip along the basin here. So rather than trying to maintain lawn in this tiny area, I asked if they could just plant ornamental grasses there along the fence. I think it would look nicer and less maintenance. And then moving back up Route 9, yeah, this green area here, as you can see from the shrubs around the parking, you really can't access this area. And certainly you wouldn't want to do this on a weekly basis to mow this lawn in this area. So I asked if they could, either choose a low mow or no mow native seed mix, or even do a large swath of other type of ornamental grasses that you'd see in a meadow.
We find the guidance to be very good and we accept it. We would look to you for a final determination as to which grasses were to be installed in those two areas.
Sherry, before we leave the landscaping, apparently the water company requires the hot box to be like in the front yard on Route 9. Is there some way you can work with the applicant to like screen it in some way so it's not so obnoxious looking?
Yeah, I spoke actually with Mike earlier today, and that was agreeable to them, that they would provide additional landscaping for where it's located.
So just so the board understands, the water company has dictated the location of the hot box, which is very typical, which is above grade. It requires relief for accessory structure in the front yard, which is along the Route 9 frontage. And I have no problem with it being there because we really have limited control over it, but I just want them to work with Shari. So because it's there, it can be screened with landscaping, and I would take no exception to the relief as long as they work with her office to make sure it's not, you know, without some kind of like landscape screening.
And Ms. Beam, Mr. Marinelli was in contact with New Jersey American Water Company. We are able to landscape, I think we have to, Mike, help me here, 5-foot separation from the box?
That's correct. So there's roughly 20 feet from the existing parking to the property line. As you can see, as Ms. Spiro had spoken about, there's existing mature growth here that we may either replace and or supplement. But in this area, we would also provide on 3 sides within 5 feet of the pad, an arborvitae or, green type buffering. And there's adequate space to provide that 5 foot around, and adequately screen it from the Route 9 frontage.
So I don't take exception to the fact that it's there and they need relief for it technically. As long as Sherry is okay with what they're prescribing around it from a landscaping perspective, I'm good with it.
Okay. Ms. Beam, before we leave your comments, you did have a comment that the trash enclosure shall be masonry, and to be designed to be consistent with the building's architecture. Consider that to be an offer of the applicant, full compliance with that request.
Thank you.
Mike, real quick, when you were testifying, I know you have the fence over there on the west side. But from my perspective on this plan, you do not have that as Jennifer had stated, she doesn't want that in the triangle, and I agree with her. So that's not going to be there, right? It's just along the southern, or was it the western side? That fence?
Yeah, so where the fence ends is, roughly 8 feet short of the property line for that specific purpose, that you're able to see down Sunnyside Road, and it's outside the site triangles.
Okay, so it's going to be no obstruction for anybody coming out or in.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Murray, just to clarify that also, while the applicant was zoomed in there. So that was a request of the property owner to the west that a solid white vinyl fence be provided along the westerly side of the site driveway all the way into the site. The applicant's original submission for site plan had, I want to say like a metal post and rail fencing, 50% open along the west and north side of their driveway that wraps around the building. We had recommended that be solid vinyl fencing to, provide additional screening from like any vehicle lights and things like that. They made that change. So, that was something positive. And then I'm just going to add some additional information here to hopefully speed this along. They did show a site triangle on the plan. We just asked that a condition they got to actually dedicate it as an easement. As part of the use approval, they'd agreed to consolidate the lots, so that just has to be followed through when they get, site plan approval from the board. I had a comment about the gates. The applicant indicated the gates to the rear circulation drive aisle are going to be lifting type. I just asked the applicant to provide testimony, making sure that's going to comply with the noise ordinance. It's not going to be all times of the night. It's relatively, low noise, right?
That's correct. These are electric motors, and they're only like 1.5 horsepower. So it's not, a loud generator type noise. It's an electric type gate noise. So it would meet the ordinance, the noise
Properly
ordinance.
oiled and maintained, so it's not like the Tin Man squeaking at 10 o'clock at night, right?
No,
I hope so.
no,
Yes.
no,
You hope
no,
not.
no.
I hope so. No, definitely, for sure they would be
No,
maintained as
not I
necessary.
hope so.
Gotcha. All right. And then, as Mr. Marinelli noted, they significantly designed the stormwater management as part of the use variance application. So I was satisfied with it at that time. Obviously, their outfall for their stormwater system ties into the state system. So as part of their occupancy and access permit, they're going to need to obviously get the final sign off from DOT. I will also note the board did request that the applicant provide sidewalk along the frontage in DOT's right of way. You can see on this rendering, they followed through with that. In this instance, normally you'd want it across the property frontage. But for here, it would kind of wrap and be a sidewalk to nowhere. They actually have it coming across the off-ramp to Sunnyside Road, tying into the existing sidewalk at the northwest corner of the site. So I think that's appropriate and was in line with what the board's request was. Parking, there's no change. We had a question about ADA accessibility. I think that the building department issued a memo that they were satisfied with that. There was testimony regarding traffic and concern from neighbors about box trucks and things of that nature. I believe the applicant agreed to a condition that there would be no tractor trailers. They agreed to a condition that all anything above a passenger vehicle had to be a left only out of the site. And they did provide signage on their site plan to that. They also, there were some questions regarding the Sunnyside Road, the off-ramp from Route 9, there being a concern with the driveway location. They did provide a signage saying hidden driveway ahead, and that would be subject to DOT approval. Those were all things that were requested by the board that the applicant has followed through with. Landscaping was pretty much everything that Sherry had. I didn't really have anything additional. Ken, you mentioned the phase 1. I just asked that that also be provided for the board's record.
Oh, sure.
We were satisfied with the EIR that you had provided as part of the use variance, but being that you're providing it to the Environmental Commission, we'd also like to have that for record.
Will do.
And then the hot box, I'm satisfied with what the applicant has agreed to as far as landscaping. So, and then just to give the board perspective on what that is, it's the water surface for the site. It's required to have a backflow preventer. American Water requires that to be above grade. It's essentially water valves that restricts, flow, so it's not backflowing into the public water supply. Being above grade, it needs to be enclosed in a structure so it doesn't freeze during the winter time. So we don't have a white elephant, silver box covering this enclosure. They're providing screening around it. I think that's all appropriate, for what's being proposed. So I really have nothing further, Mr. Chair.
I have a very brief statement to make, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Your
go ahead.
applicant and your applicant's professionals had the opportunity to review the staff reports in adequate time before the meeting. Also, your professionals made themselves available to our professionals. We've spent considerable time with Mr. Cunliffe, going back and forth. I had meetings with him, and then the full staff had meetings with him. And I think that is the reason why we're in what I would like to say such conformance with our prior resolution of use variance. I do not have any further direct testimony. I do have available Mr. Penke, and as I indicated, Mr. Radasti, and Mr. Marinelli stays available, but I have nothing further in support of the applicant's request for the preliminary and final site plan as submitted.
Okay, Mr. Pape, before we go to open up to public, any board members have any questions? Mr. Hughes, Mr. Cantor?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I do not, sir.
Seeing
Mr.
none,
Chairman.
Go ahead.
No, I just had one question regarding the information I was provided to the Environmental Commission regarding their concerns with some wildlife there. Could you just put something on the record regarding whether or not that information that was provided to the Environmental Commission was satisfied their concerns?
The Environmental Commission, we met with them on 2 occasions during the past winter. They gave us a letter that was issued in April. It had 1 open item. It was the only item that they was left unsatisfied. They asked that we provide them with the phase 1 environmental audit. And I delivered that phase 1 environmental audit in a Dropbox to Lisa Dowd the first week of May. That was the only request that they had, and there's been nothing since from them, no further requests.
Okay, so we can just put, everything will be in the resolution referring to that.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, and just to piggyback on that comment, and I'll just, so should the phase 1, if there was a prior residence or anything like that on the property, should the phase 1 indicate that there's any additional action required by the applicant or property owner? Obviously, that would be a condition of the approval as well. If there was any type of underground storage for oil for a dwelling or something like that, that needed to be removed in accordance with any applicable state regulations, that would obviously be a condition of the board's approval. No issues with that, Ken?
And it was a real good phase 1 environmental audit. There was no phase 2 required.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't referring to the phase 1. I was referring to the Environmental Commission comments dated September 14, 2022, in which they expressed concern about the potential presence of bobcat in northern Karula in the environmental impact report, which in looking at the environmental impact report, it talks about these two species of animals. Are we certain that we're in the clear here with, moving forward on this site plan with respects to these animals?
Mr.
I mean, I'll opine, yes, we are. Because at the end of the day, the regulatory requirements are lumped into the wetlands requirements, what the applicant has demonstrated compliance with. So yes, we're good.
Okay, thank you.
No bobcats there.
You guys
Sorry.
laugh, but like, and Shari can back me up. When I was at CME, there was an individual that went out to a site on 33, which is now being built by Toll Brothers, and guess what they found on the site? That's right, a bobcat. So it does happen. So I thought it was a joke too, but until somebody came face to face with the bobcat. So yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to. It's
All right.
good question, Mark. It's good to have that on. Anyway. Okay, Mr. Pape, the only other thing was Charlie, we're all good with the lighting, because I know that was one thing that was brought up by one of the residents to the south side of Sunny.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I apologize. So I had a comment in my letter. So typically on sites like this where it butts residential, it's preferable for like pole mounted lighting to be facing the building. In this instance, the applicant's proposing just wall mounted lighting at a moderate height. I think it's anywhere from like 8 to 15 feet facing outward from the building. And the reason being so is they're respecting the 50-foot buffer along the westerly and northerly property line. If the board were so inclined and wanted the, pole mounted lighting facing the building that required a minimal buffer disturbance just for the foundation, I wouldn't take exception to it. I know, Jen, we typically don't like to have any type of buffer disturbance grading or anything like this, but I think in this instance, for it to be facing the building might be a more preferable alternative.
I agree.
Okay.
If that is the direction of the board's professionals and the board is comfortable taking the direction, then your applicant is comfortable too. It will require this minimum bulk variance relief, the proofs of which are that we're doing so to satisfy the board's professionals to create a lesser impact on our residential neighbor. But and the notice was published in such a manner that that relief could be granted if it was found appropriate.
I'm good with it. If the board should choose to act favorably, I think that's a reasonable request.
So noted, and I think it's a good request. As long as no other board members have an issue, I think that's good. Put that in the resolution. Okay, at this time, we'll move to public comment. If there's any more comments from the board. Okay, motion to open to public.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to open to public.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Eileen, I got it right this time.
If you are calling in, you could press *9 to raise or lower your hand and *6 to mute and unmute yourself.
What are you there?
Nobody's calling in or raising their hand.
Okay, I think we've accomplished a lot. We'll make a motion to close.
Motion to close.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Mr. Pape, I guess we can, if you have anything final?
Very brief, Mr. Chair. Simply that your applicant has come forward honoring all of its commitments and asking that you carry those commitments and promises forward. Your applicant has worked with your professionals over the past 5 months to create these plans. And we're very pleased that your staff reports are as supportive as they are. The remaining technical responsibilities that are set forth in the 3 reports, your applicant will address to the satisfaction of your professionals. And we respectfully ask that you consider favorably the preliminary and final site plan with that limited bulk variance that we just created by moving the lights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pape.
Thank you.
Anything further from anybody? Okay, entertain it. What's the pleasure of the board?
All right, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the preliminary major site plan for this application with the bulk relief that was just agreed to and all other ancillary variance reliefs that were added subsequent to our initial approval.
But it's preliminary and final, right?
yes.
Yes, preliminary and final major site plan.
Okay.
I'd like to second that, Mr. Chair.
We have a second from Mr. Hughes. Eileen, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mr. Rubel,
Yes.
and Mr. Parisi.
Yes, and I do want to add that I appreciate that the applicant is doing all they can to preserve some of the existing woods in the buffer area. You know, having formerly served on the Shade Tree Commission, that's something that's important to me, and I do appreciate that.
I agree.
Mr.
Location
Chairman,
is approved.
Mr. Chairman, all board members and all who worked with us, thank you and good night.
Good night,
All right, Mr. Pape.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Take care.
Okay, does anybody else have any further comments?
Good job, Rich.
Thank you.
Excellent. Agreed.
That first one was a little doozy, but anyway, do I have a motion to close?
Shockingly, of all the three, that was the doozy.
Yeah, I
Yes.
know. I didn't, that was the last one I thought was gonna be.
Exactly.
I'll make a motion to close, sir.
Okay. Have a second.
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 Okay, Jose, I'll give you credit for that because you missed the last meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, everybody have a safe week. We'll see you next Monday. Same.
Next Monday, same
night,
time,
everyone.
same
Nice-
channel.
Take care,
Nice to
everyone. Have a
see
good
you.
night. See you next
Good night.
Monday.
Good night to
Thank you. Good night,
all.
everybody.
Have a good night.